Hey everybody, my name's Jackson Ratcliffe. I want you to picture yourself driving a boat that's bigger than the Titanic, carrying over 50 million gallons of oil, and all of a sudden you feel the boat shudder to a stop. There's probably not enough swear words in your vocabulary to describe how you're feeling right now. This was the experience of third mate Gregory Cousins on March 24th, 1989, as he grounded the Exxon Valdez on the Bly Reef. Now, you may be wondering what the significance is of an oil spill 30 years ago up in Alaska to a kid in Seattle taking a communications class. Well, to me, the Exxon Valdez oil spill is a case study in what leads up to a crisis and how not to respond to a crisis. Now, today, first, I'll be talking about the lead up to the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and second, I'll be talking about the response to the oil spill. Now, really, what I'll be arguing is that Exxon's irresponsibility and the inaccountability caused the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Now, to this day, Exxon maintains that it was an accident. I'm here to say that it's not. And I think that all started back in 1984. The Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation released a report saying that Exxon would not be able to contain an oil spill based on what Exxon was carrying up there. However, that no action was taken until 1989, the year of the oil spill, just a few months prior, when the Port of Valdez came to the same conclusion that the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation did, that Exxon could not contain an oil spill. So at this point, Exxon ordered an oil skimmer, which is essentially a cleanup device for $5 million, and it was set to arrive in August of 1990. However, this proved to be too little too late because the spill was in March of 1989. Now, fast forward to the time of the spill, we're dealing with an overworked crew. The National Transportation Safety Board in 1990 released a safety recommendation that said they didn't believe Exxon Shipping Company showed sufficient regard for the known debilitations as a result of crew member fatigue. As an example of this, the third mate was driving at the time of the crash. The third mate had had maybe 5 hours of sleep in the last 24 hours. Reports are conflicting, but it wasn't much. On only 5 hours of sleep, he made the call and crashed the boat. Continuing on, the Raycast radar system was not maintained. Raycast stands for the Raytheon Collision Avoidance System, which basically tells you about any reefs, icebergs, anything like that. But according to Gregory Palast, a journalist who did an extensive profile on the Exxon Valdez spill, he wrote that in 1999 that the third mate would never have hit Bly Reef had he simply looked at his Raycast radar, but he wasn't able to because the Raycast system is expensive and a frugal Exxon management left it broken and useless for the entire year before grounding. Now here, I'll show you my first presentation aid. That is of the grounded Exxon Valdez ship. Um, and you can see the oil slick around it and the boat saddled up next to it. That boat is trying to get the remaining oil off the ship so it doesn't spill into the bay. And I wanted to take a moment here to just give you an idea of the scope of the oil spill. With so many big numbers, it's kind of hard to know how big they really are. But almost 11 million gallons spilled out of the Exxon Valdez. That's roughly the same amount as 125 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It covered 1,300 miles of coastline, 1,300, which is roughly the same amount from the northernmost tip of Washington down to the southernmost tip of California, all slicked in oil. This was a spill of epic proportions. Now, to summarize, the Exxon Valdez was set up to fail by their parent company. Exxon continued to further mishandle the situation with their last lackluster and unmotivated response to the spill. Now, the spill occurred just after midnight on March 24th. Exxon didn't claim responsibility for the spill until noon on March 24th. Now, to give you some context for that area and oil spills in general, the first hours are crucial. The longer the oil sits there, the more it spreads and the harder it is to contain, especially in a place like Prince William Sound, which is known for its extreme weather. This lacking response meant that the oil was able to spread and they weren't able to contain it. Now, a second part of why they weren't able to contain the oil in Prince William Sound was they didn't have enough booms and skimmers on hand. Now, when I say booms and skimmers, this is the mechanical term or the mechanical cleanup method for these oil spills. So a boom is an inflatable raft type thing that goes around all the oil spill, keeps it contained, and the skimmer is like a little Roomba, if you will, that picks up your oil. They did not have enough of these on hand. In fact, the EPA released a report in response to the spill stating that shortly after the spill, mechanical cleanup was started using booms and skimmers. However, skimmers were not readily available during the first 24 hours after the spill. Now here I'll direct you to the second slide on my presentation. You can see that big white line. That's the boom, and then the skimmers would be right near the boat there. Now, in absence of booms and skimmers, they went to chemical dispersants. However, because they got to it so late and because they hadn't maintained their equipment, they weren't able to get chemical dispersants until 17 hours after the spill had occurred, which meant that the oil had already emulsified with the water. Also, they didn't keep their chemical dispersant equipment readily maintained. There was broken sprayers on it, and so that further led to the delay. Now, chemical dispersants should normally be a last resort in an oil spill. They're toxic to people, they're toxic to the environment. In fact, 4 people were killed in the Exxon Valdez cleanup because of the chemical dispersants used. However, these were used more as a first or second option, knowing that the mechanicals would fail. Now, to sum all that up, the ideal conditions for cleanup were squandered. A storm came in two days after the spill on March 26th and spread the slick all throughout Prince William Sound, making it near impossible to clean up. Only 10% of the total oil was recovered or cleaned from chemical dispersants, and uh, and I actually have some personal relation to that area. I was able to work up in Prince William Sound on tour boats, and it's a gorgeous area, but you can still see the effects of it. If you go to the beaches and you dig down, you can still find crude oil. 22 orca whales were killed from the oil, and their populations aren't rising back up again. And the communities are forever marked by it. Now, to summarize everything that I just said, um, Exxon was setting themselves up for disaster with many factors like ignoring the warning signs, overworking their crew, and not maintaining their equipment, and then after the spill, not having enough equipment on hand, such as the booms and skimmers, not taking responsibility for the spill until noon on March 24th, and not having chemical dispersants readily available and using that much earlier than they should have. Um, so just to state again, Exxon's irresponsibility and unaccountability caused this spill and the after effects. And I just want to push all of us as leaders to be responsible and accountable and know that it will benefit not only ourselves, but our communities and the world as well.